Hey everybody, Joy here. It is Sunday, January 2, 2022. Jerry and I were married February 1. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I was going to go back and get married on February 2 because then our anniversary would be on 2/2/2/2. Isn't it crazy what goes through your head? Okay, here's the deal. I have to tell you, I obviously said something very wrong yesterday when I made my video about my chickens. It's not the second quilt I quilted. It's the second quilt pattern that I purchased. Okay? It's the second quilt pattern that I purchased. I didn't get it done until 10 years. At least I didn't have a long arm then at all. No long arm. Had not ever done the quilting on the top of a quilt. But I had made lots and lots and lots of clothes, and I had done lots and lots of applique. I'd done a lot of applique on children's clothing and on my clothing, and I got a broken fingernail here I just discovered. So I knew how to do the applique part, okay? The barn. I knew how to do that. But I certainly did not know how to do the long arm quilting. But it was 10 years from when I purchased this pattern from Nancy Barrett. Remember, my very first quilting class was from Nancy Barrett at Oklahoma Quilt Works in Oklahoma City. I have no idea why I decided I suddenly wanted to make a quilt. Maybe I met somebody at the Bernina store that was taking the class. I don't remember that much detail. But I remember that I took my very first quilting class there from Nancy Barrett, and I made, actually, this quilt over here. Let me take this off and I'll show you. You see this quilt here wrapped around my jewelry station table? Oh, howdy does it stay a mess. But you see, I was into pink and blue then. My house was all mauve and blue then. Our first house that we bought had a lot of mauve and blue in it. So this was my very first quilt that I actually made. You see? And it was a class by Nancy Barrett, Beginning Quilting. And it just had, I don't know, about 9. It had about 9 different blocks, I guess. Looks like they weren't that different. Okay, so this was my very first that I ever made. Quilt. And I quilted it on whatever sewing machine I had at that time, probably my 930, because that was many years ago. So I quilted that on my regular sewing machine. So the quilting on it is just very simple, and it looks like I just quilted a 1/4 inch around all the shapes. So you can see, there I am, a super beginner on a regular sewing machine. I've had that on there ever since I decided to make jewelry. It's just staying there. So I took Nancy Barrett's beginner quilting class many years ago. 30 years ago, a long time ago. That Oklahoma Quilt Works is owned by completely different people now. So I'm going to tell you how I learned to do this kind of quilting, because that certainly wasn't quilt number 2. What I did when I first got my long arm was I would take solid fabrics or print fabrics, and I would quilt them. I'm going to show you one of them. I've still got it. Here it is. It's just a solid piece of material with the fabric by 1.5 yards. See? And I wanted to learn how to use my long arm, so I did a whole bunch of these. I did one in dark brown camouflage, and Jerry keeps it in his truck on the floor and on the chair in the back seat. It's been there for years and years and years and years. So there it is. Was that a pantograph? No, I don't think so. It wasn't a pantograph, because if it was, I must have been drunk when I did it. So this is my freehand work, trying to teach myself how to do that. It might have been a pantograph. Could I have been that bad and that wiggly? Good heavens. Let me look. Yeah, was I ever wobbly. Wobbly, wobbly, the points aren't pointed, it's super wobbly, even though it was a pantograph. I did a terrible job. You know what a pantograph is? That's where you're tracing a design on the back of your machine. And you're just moving the sewing machine according to this design. You're looking down here at this design and you're tracing it with a laser light. That's what a pantograph is. So I did dozens of those. Dozens at least. And the way I started getting them, first I did just the solid fabrics like this. Well, then I wanted to learn to do some quilts. So what I did was I ordered quilt tops. Not quilts, just quilt tops from eBay. Sometimes it'd be $25. I bought a couple for $75. I bought one that's just gorgeous. When I used to make videos at my Edmond home, and I stood in front of that great, big, huge blue and purples star quilt, that was one that I bought from eBay. I love that one. I added borders to it and I quilted it, but I did not make that quilt top. But I did quilt it, and I was getting really good by then because I didn't let myself do anything that nice until I had done a whole bunch of this. So after this I started doing baby size quilts. And sometimes I ordered flannel, and I did solid fabric flannel, like little ducks or little dolls or little whatever. And I quilted a whole bunch of those freehand. Trying to practice my loops and my stars. So I just don't want you to think that I'm some kind of a wizard or something at learning how to do a long arm, because I did not learn how to do this overnight. Like I said, it took me 10 years to make this. I was such a new quilter that when I was quilting, when I was sewing these strips together, they did not come out to the measurements that Nancy Barrett put in her pattern that they were supposed to be, and I just bawled. I just bawled and bawled. I thought, oh, I'm never going to get this right. I'm never going to get it right. I'm sure what I did was a regular 1/4 inch instead of a thin 1/4 inch. And I took it to the quilt store one day and I said, what do I do? What do I do? I've just ruined this quilt. And they just looked at me like I was a complete moron. It doesn't matter how wide it is. Just use your measurement. I'm like, what? But the pattern says. Hey, I was not a fast learner on even how to sew strips together. Oh my, I have come a long way since those days. I thought that I was going to just have to throw this quilt away and never finish it, because my strip pieces, not one strip, but when I sewed, see here, there's 1, 2, 3 pieces sewn together. Say it was supposed to be 2.5 inches, and mine came out to 2 inches. See what I mean? And then here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe that was supposed to come out to be 3.5 inches, and mine came out to be 3 3/4 inches. And I just thought I was just going to throw it away. I thought I had completely ruined it. I knew so little about quilting. But 10 years later, when I had some time, maybe I had semi-retired by then, I did get it out. I knew a lot more then. I was able to get it all put together, and I had practiced many, many, many months on this long arm. In fact, I wonder if it says in here what year I finished it. Let's look. Chanticleer and Company, patterned by Nancy Barrett, pieced and quilted with the Millennium by Joy Bernhardt, Kingston, Oklahoma. Started in 1997, finished August of 2007. Okay, so I got my long arm in 2006. So probably was a year in there of practicing on these samples and little baby quilts and solid pieces of fabric before I got around to doing this. Okay? I'm glad I put that on there. 1997, 98, 99, 2000, 7 years. I think that's 10 years. Isn't that 10 years? Yes, sir. Okay, I wanted to clarify that. And I wanted to explain that if you want to learn how to use a long arm and you're a new long arm owner, practice, practice, practice. Watch the ladies. One wonderful, fabulous, amazing teacher, and she was just born with this quilt. She is a doodler, and she can draw pictures, and she loves to draw. See, I can't draw a square without a ruler. I can't draw a stick person that even has two legs the same size, so I don't have that skill. She does. And she always has this saying, I think it's keep on doodling or something. But she is an excellent teacher, and she has 1, 2, or 3 years of doing some kind of a free motion long arm design with an APQS Millennium like I have, and on a long arm. And she just marks off a space on a piece of fabric she's got on her long arm, and she will let you watch her as she does this, as she traces it, as she sews it. She's awesome. I used to have, yeah, right here. I don't know if you can see up here. You probably can't. Let me turn the camera a little bit so you can see it. See right here in this corner? It says Tracy. That's who I'm talking about, Tracy. I think her name is Tracy Gardner. This is one of the designs that is on one of her YouTube videos. And so I drew it up here on the board so I would not forget it. Now she does a lot of pieced quilts. And so this is something you could do if you had squares and you had to do something in squares, but you can do it in triangles. I think a few months back I might have shown you this on something else I was getting ready to quilt. I don't remember now which quilt it was. So I will type it here or here, what her name is, and what her YouTube channel is called. I'm having a real hard time talking to y'all because I keep coughing. Let me put this cough drop in my mouth. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Anyway, her channel is called Whirlsnswirlsquilting. Her name is Tracy Gardner. And her videos that I started watching were years ago, because I've been doing this for a long time. But I will put a link below to one of her kinds of videos that I'm talking about. And then when you look it up, you'll know her name and you'll know what it's called. I think they had numbers. Like, she'd do a whole year and do a different design every day. And she'd start out with 101 and then go to 102, 103, 104, something like that. So I'll pull one of them up and put a link here or here and down below. How about that? Because we've all got to practice, practice, practice to get good at any hobby. Isn't that the truth? But I just wanted to clarify that no. I did not do this the second time I put a quilt on my long arm. So I apologize for making everybody think that. I thought, yeah, I wish. No. This is what the second quilt on my long arm looked like. Oh yeah. All right. Gonna let you go for now. Love y'all. I'll be back soon.